بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Okay. In our last class, we were discussing the theory of property. All right. We talked about al-mal, what exactly and how it's been defined in Quran and Sunnah, and what exactly we meant by the al-mal and also the derivatives of al-mal. It could be al-amwal, right? For example, malukum, amwaluna, amwalukum, these are the things referring to al-mal, which is property. And then we talked about when we talked about the definition and the meaning, the technical meaning of property, then we discussed two different views, right? We talked about in the view of Muslim jurists, there are two views with regard to the definition of property. One is according to according to majority, and then the other one is according to Hanafi, all right? We also discussed why the differences are there, and later these differences will take place when we talk about the classification of property. All right, so there are around six classifications of property, and the reason that we discuss classification of property, because for each and every classification there are consequences. If this thing happen, what is the solution? If this thing happen, what is the answer? Right? So there are always so many consequences, but we are discussing a few. So we talked about the first classification, which is based on the value of property according to Sharia. So we talked about what are the valuable properties and what are the non-valuable properties according to Sharia. So we talked about valuable properties are those that been permitted by the Sharia, and all the things that you can possess and secure, right? And the non-valuable property includes all those things which actually Sharia prohibits to have. It could be wine or jifa. Jifa means dead animals, dead meat, right? Pork, and also the things that you cannot possess. Because one of the definition of al-mal is actually something that you can possess, something that you can actually secure so that you can use it for some time, right? So if you cannot possess something, suddenly you come and say that there are so many air in this area that belong to me. No, until you put in a container, then it becomes yours. If you say that, no, there are so many birds in the sky, so whatever in my tree sitting, it is all my birds. No, until you catch it, until you hunt it, it is not going to be yours. Also, if you see that, these are the area in this as ocean, whatever the fishes is actually mine. Now you cannot until you fish them all and you keep it in a container, then you can actually have it. Otherwise, this thing will come under non-valuable property. Then we discussed what are the consequences may happen under this particular classification of valuable and non-valuable. We talked about the validity of contract, right? That is the first thing that we talked about it, because the validity always depends on the subject matter, whether it is a valuable or non-valuable. Because if you you need to know this, when you are selling and buying, for example, you are selling and buying wine from somebody. For you as a Muslim, it is actually comes under non-validity of contract, because this contract is not valid. You need to understand this all the time. Something that you buy which has a core value according to Sharia. If there is perhaps a conventionally speaking, according to the secular law, whatever the people doing today, there might be some sort of value, they call it, right? Let's say if someone is selling heroin, cocaine, or selling some dangerous things, poisons and everything, today there is a price in black market. There's a price in black market, but as a Muslim, why is it actually prohibited for any Muslim to deal with it? That's because it has no core value according to Sharia. Okay, why? Because why we are not allowed to exchange with our money and interest, right? Because you know that banks are making all those money into commodity, all those interest, according to the conventional bank, interest actually becoming what? Commodity. So now why actually Islamic banks are not dealing with interest? Because uh, whatever they call it, commodity of interest, it has no core value in exchanging. So for that reason, we are not allowed to do any ribawi contract. Okay, you need to understand this very clearly. Why ribawi contract is haram? Why it is not valid? Why it is batil? Why wine and those prohibited items are not allowed for Muslim? Why those cocaine, heroin, and those poisonous things, right? Why it is not allowed in Sharia? Why it is not allowed for Muslims? This is the only reason why, because it has no core value. It has no core value according to Sharia. So this reason every one of you should understand. So now the same thing comes to the things that what people today supposedly selling. Again, according to Sharia, we need to re-look into it. For example, people are selling wastages. People are selling, if there is a purpose of selling, if it is be useful for something, then there is nothing, there is no problem in that. But if there is no reason at all, and then people started selling, then people started buying just for the sake of buying, which has no core value, then this is not something that Sharia is allowing. All right, remember that all the time, because nowadays, there are so many contracts being happening. Sometimes someone is buying somebody's waste just for some other, some not necessarily for the basis, on the basis of the contract. They are really, I mean, not it's not necessary under the basis of profit, not necessary under the basis of benefits. There are some contracts been happening just for the basis of clearing the place, or maybe clearing the name, making the name, safeguarding the dignity, these kind of things, politically, administratively, socially, these are the things are happening. This is all comes under this consideration. Whatever that you are selling and you are buying, whether it has a core value or not, if you think that there is no core value, then don't buy it or don't sell it. All right. The same thing goes to something that been used for so many times, and then rather than you give it for free, if you have used items which you have done it, which you have used it, whatever that is supposed to be used. I mean, you have used it, the core, I mean, you have used it up to the extent that it cannot be used anymore for the, so then if you still don't need it, then you can actually give it to somebody for free. Not necessarily, you have to make it look like new and then you have to sell it. Okay, this is another kind of cheating, right? Sometimes people use it, and then but when they want to sell it, they put some polish, this and that, and then they are selling it. So there are so many issues might come. In fact, today people are doing bundle business, this and that. Some of them are okay, but some of them are, we don't know yet the nature of that business, because sometimes they might get it for free, and then they were asked to distribute to the poor people, but people are selling. Those people supposedly distribute for free, but sometimes it comes into market and then people are buying. So these are the things has to come under, has to be a discussion under this topic called valuable and one non-valuable properties. All right. Another consequences that we talked about it last week was actually compensation for the destruction. Of course, everybody is agreed according to Hanafi. Everybody agreed that if anyone, even though it's non-valuable property, but it belongs to someone. It could be non-Muslim, all right? It could be any non-Muslim. It belongs to someone. According to his belief, it is actually a property for him. So if anyone by mistake or intentionally wasted or damaged that kind of property, he or she has to do compensation. All right. Let's go to the second classification. Okay, the first one we discussed. Now let's go to the second one. Right. So this is the second one. Based on the value of property according to Sharia. All right. Sorry. I'm sorry. This is the first one we talked about it. This is the second one based on stability and instability. This is where we're going to talk about movable and immovable property. So again, there are two views according to this. So what is movable? What is immovable? Of course, whatever is in your hand, for example, your phone, your watch, right? Your shirt, your car, whatever that you can move from one place to another place, become movable. And immovable is something like land, your house, a tree, those are the things, whatever also inside your home, right? The table, I mean, sorry, not the table. Table is actually movable property. What about the door? The door is attached. The window, the ceilings, all those kind of things. So this is what actually we're going to talk about now. There are two views. According to Maliki, like I said just now, whatever immovable is actually includes land, anything that is permanently fixed. All right. Whatever that if you move, then it will get some damages. So whatever it cannot be moved, like for example, buildings and trees, all those things come into immovable property. What about movable properties? Like what I told you just now, that can be moved from one place to another place, such as money, animal, books, car, etc., etc. All right, but there are another view according to Hanafi, slightly different. I will tell you why they have differences, because we also gonna have some consequences. That's the reason why they are having different views, right? So Hanafi, immovable property is the property that cannot be taken from a place to a place like land. But now, when it comes to buildings, trees, and anything planted on land, not necessarily it has to be considered as immovable property, but they follow the land. What does it mean? So you have a land. In that land, there is a, a tree, right? So now, according to Maliki, the land also immovable property, the tree also immovable property. But according to Imam Hanafi, Abu Hanifa, he says that, of course it is immovable property, but, okay, of course it is immovable property. Give me a minute. Okay. Of course it is immovable property, but at the same time, um, you don't have to call the tree itself, the tree or the building itself. For example, it's a land and there is a small building in that land. All right. The tree itself, the building itself, not necessarily called immovable property. It has to be called. It follows the land. I tell you why they are saying it. They restricted the meaning of immovable property to land only. The land only is immovable property according to Imam Abu Hanifa. If the land is sold together with the buildings and trees, the rules governing immovable property are also applicable to the building and trees. But if only the building or the trees are sold without the land, the rules governing immovable property are not applicable to them. So this is where they have the different view, you know, because sometimes we sell only the land. Sometimes we sell, okay, I sell you the land, whatever on that land is actually belong to you. All right, you got me. For example, um, there is a lake in that land. uh, so now there will be, someone will say, okay, I have sold the land to you. So whatever comes with that land, whether it's a lake or the trees, everything belongs. But later, but if someone may come and say, tell you like this, no, no, I'm selling you only the land. I'm not selling you that lake. I want to take that lake. I want to take that tree. There's a possibility, right? You know, because even it is actually quite familiar, because today we are quite familiar with this, uh, because now there's a possibility that someone may own the tree, not the land. Someone may own the tree. For example, I say, okay, there is a tree in that land. I want to sell this tree to someone. Then someone might come and say, okay, I want to buy the tree. All right. Now, maybe there's a possibility that someone may sold the entire land except the tree. So now in the land, in that particular land, there are two owners. One, he owns the entire land, not the tree. There's another land, there is another owner who owns only the tree, not the entire land. So there is a possibility, right? I tell you how it is possible today. All right. So when we are buying an apartment, actually we are actually not owning the land, right? Maybe we are in 12th floor, or maybe in the 15th floor. We have an apartment in that floor. Maybe there are 10 and 20 rooms and houses in the flats in that floor, but we only own one. It doesn't mean that you own the land. Okay. The same thing according to Imam Abu Hanifa. There are, because he goes deep, and then he says that there are differences, because you cannot call everything immovable property. So now the one who bought land only, it is considered immovable property. But that particular tree which belong to somebody else, not the one who owned the land, then that particular tree, not necessarily it has to be called immovable property. It will become movable property. It will become movable property. But if someone is selling the land together with everything, the lake in it, the tree in it, then everything will become what? Immovable property according to Hanafi. I tell you this, why? Because there are the consequences. Okay, these are the consequences. Movable property. Okay, again, who according to Abu Hanifa, movable properties like everybody else. Example: money, animal, car, books, and other traditional tradable commodities. This is actually everybody the same. Movable properties. Okay. The consequence number one. Why they have the differences? Let me tell you now. Number one is actually the right of preemption. Okay, this is called shufa'a. So I need to explain to you what exactly shufa'a. Okay, shufa'a means it's a kind of right. You know, we will talk about it in hukuk, in rights of the properties. But this is very important. Most of the people, they don't practice it. Actually, it is according to Sharia. This is very important that everyone should practice it. Shufa'a is actually called preemption, which means that, you know, um, you want to sell your house to somebody, so better you ask your neighbor. I mean, not the permission. You don't have to ask permission to your neighbor whether can I sell my house or not. What I'm trying to tell, if you really want to sell your house, your first choice must be given to your neighbor. You have to ask your neighbor. If you want to sell your land, for example, you have a 5,000 square feet land, and then you want to sell to somebody, your first choice must be the neighboring land. The land belongs to your neighbor. I mean, the neighbor land, the land beside you, whoever's land it is, you have to ask them, do you want to expand your land rather than I sell it to somebody? This is actually Sharia, right? This is amazing right that Sharia has given, because this is to, this is actually to bring the harmony among the society. Uh, it might be not obvious here, but in some places, like country, like my country, like India, maybe there are Muslims in the entire jalan, in the entire street, because this is how Muslims lives. Muslims and non-Muslims, they live together, but sometimes they also live some places which they own the whole entire street, and then they have masjid in the corner of the street because they want to go to pray. Suddenly, if a Muslim sell his house to somebody, he didn't ask any Muslim neighborhood. He went and he sell to non-Muslim neighborhood, and that non-Muslim came and bought it because if his intention is to bring disharmony among the society, what he will do, what he actually done before, we know some examples back in India, he will come and he will convert his house into something. He will convert his house into temple where there is no need to require, there is no need to build any temple in that area because there is no non-Muslim around, it's all Muslims. But he will say that, no, I have all the right to make my house into temple because this is my property. Do you understand my point? So there is a problem when it comes to, when it comes to not following preemption. That's why any Muslim is selling his property, we always advise him, okay, ask a neighbor Muslim whether he wants to buy it, all right, or within the same street, or within the same country, I mean, within the same compound. If they don't have money, if they cannot buy, then only you go to the next option. This is called shufa'a, is defined as the right of co-owner to substitute himself for the purchaser if the other co-owner decides to sell his share. Even not necessary only the land, not necessary only the house. It also goes to, your share. For example, you are partner. You are partner in something. You are doing business for so long, and you have 50%. Your partner has another 50%. Rather than you sell your share to somebody, a new guy, you ask your partner, do you want to buy my share for this price because I need money? All right, you ask your partner first before you ask somebody else, because the somebody else might come and he may be a disturbance, we don't know yet. So in order to bring harmony, Sharia is actually bringing this right called shufa'ah. Islamic law gives a right of preemption in cases of indivisible property. So now, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, all right, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, this is something different because he says that whatever is immovable property, because the land will, because you don't have to sell any movable property to your neighbor. For example, I have a phone. I want to sell my phone. I don't have to ask my neighbor, do you want my phone? Because it is irrelevant, because any movable property, nobody says that you have to buy, you have to ask your neighbor anything that you are selling which is movable. I don't have to ask my neighbor whether you want to buy my car, whether you want to buy my bike, whether you want to buy my laptop or my other stuff which can be moved. But now according to Imam Abu Hanifa, he says that, okay, of course, if you are selling land, you must ask, right? But if you are selling only the tree, uh, not the land, which is according to Abu Hanifa, is actually what? Movable property, because only the tree. If the tree is not sold together with land, then that tree becomes what? Movable property. The same thing goes to apartment. For example, apartment, because since you are not selling together with land, so the apartments, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, comes under what? Comes under movable property. So you don't have to practice You don't have to practice shufa'a if you are selling the apartment house, or you are selling a unit in some buildings, like, you know, there are there's a unit in some buildings which the unit has no land attached to it, right? Only that particular unit will become movable property according to Imam Abu Hanifa. So that unit can be sold to anybody, not necessarily it has to be asked to the neighbor. All right. Only land must be asked to the neighbor. All right. Because according to him, only land is the immovable property. The another consequences of this classification related to bankruptcies. This is number 2. Bankruptcies means what? Let's say someone has a debt and then he was not able to pay, and then he announced bankruptcies. All right. According to the Sharia law, the judge will come and say, okay, let us start selling his movable properties. We have to start selling movable properties, because they cannot start selling immovable property, because immovable property is actually belong to the guy. So they will start selling everything he has. For example, his phone, his expensive watch, expensive cars and bikes and everything that movable. But now, according to Imam Malik, apartment cannot be sold. But look the other side. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, the apartment can be sold, because apartment is what? It's a movable property, like the tree was movable property. You understand my point? Okay. And then you have another consequences relates to guardianship. A guardian means what? The person that who monitor a minor, a person that who take care of orphan, right? This man cannot sell anything, any immovable property of minors, except for settling the minor's debt for his essential needs for his higher interest. So a guardian can actually start selling only movable properties. He cannot sell any immovable properties according to the law. So these guardians also will come to these consequences, right? That's 3 consequences we discussed. Let's go to number 3. Okay. Number 3 is what? Number 3 is actually based on similarity, similar and dissimilar properties. Right? Similar is actually what? It is also called homogeneous properties, and dissimilar called non-homogeneous property. What I mean by mithli is actually homogeneous, which means that you have the same thing in the market, like money, rice, wheat, corn, barley, salt, oil. You know, all those things that actually today we are getting it from supermarket, in the market. Whatever it is, you know, if you buy a kilo of sugar, you can have the same kilo of sugar. Not necessarily it has to be different, right? If you buy a liter of oil, you can have the same liter of oil, right? This is all called what? Homogeneous. So now homogeneous is actually what? Weighable, measurable, counted number and measurement. It's called weight means what? Al-mawzunat. The example is gold and silver. Whatever that you are measurable, whatever the things that are measurable is makilat, like grain and oil. Whatever that you can actually number you can actually counting, which is ma'dudat, like for example eggs, oranges, apples, you know, these are the things will be counting. All those things that, you know, you need the measurement, like for example zira'iyat, which is actually you have meters, fabrics and carpets. These are the things like meters, millimeters, centimeters, all these things, inches, all these things comes what? Under measurement. This is all these 4 types of properties comes under what? Homogeneous property, which is actually similar property. Understand? Similar property. What about the non-similar property, which is non-homogeneous property? It is something that there is no equivalent thing in the market. Property is a property like of which could not be found in the market, It could be, you know, something like precious stone or house or land. Sometimes you can get the house, the same house, but some houses that they are building, they are customizing the house. You won't get the same house. You won't get the same animal. For example, one goat is not exactly the same with another goat because there could be differences in the weight. There could be differences in so many other things. You know, not necessarily it has to be the same age, same weight, same. No, animals could be different. You know, trees could be different. There is no, you cannot say these two are similar, identical twins. No, because there are differences, because these branches and those branches, these fruits and those fruits, these leaves and those leaves are different. There are
Sir,
numbers of, yeah,
uh, so you have to be identical towards the first item.
the homogeneous must be identical, same. Like for example, anything that in market which is identical, same. The non-homogeneous is something, it cannot be identical, right? Which means that you cannot get in the market the same thing. For example, someone saw actually someone saw that you have a goat, you bought it, and if someone say, I want exactly the same goat, not possible in the market, right? So that is what we call it non-homogeneous.
Thank you, sir.
All right, welcome. So land, for example, not necessarily all the lands are the same, right? Because every land has a different sizes, and then even you have same sizes, not necessarily it has the same minerals in the land, right? Not necessarily the same amount of soil in the land. Also goes to precious stone, because stone something that you get it only, you are getting it from minerals. Sometimes it has a different shapes, sometimes it has a different. Used cars, for example, it depends on how long you used it. Any used car, any used books, any handwritten books, you know, those kind of things, it comes under what? Non-homogeneous properties. All right. So what are the consequences of this classification? We want to tell you there are two things. Number one is dain. The number two is ain. All right. So sorry. All homogeneous properties are considered obligation. Dain. All right. All non-homogeneous properties is classified as a specific thing. Ain. Why I'm saying this? Um, when you deal with thine, when we deal with thine, you have to give it back the same thing. That's why it's obligation. When a homogeneous property such as rice is sold indeterminately, the purchaser has only the seller's obligation, which is the direct subject of the contract, and not a specific thing, as it can be any rice of the same quality. All right. Similarly, money is considered among the homogeneous property and is always indeterminate or an obligation. See, now there is a contracts happening, right? So now the question is, you are going to buy something, you are going to deal with something which is it homogeneous or non-homogeneous? If it is homogeneous, then we call it is dine. Dine means obligation, which means that you bought a kilo of sugar. You bought a kilo of sugar. There's a two possibility for you. In return, you pay some money which is equivalent to that sugar. That's because the person who sold sugar to you, a kilo of sugar, he can take that money from you and he can buy another 1 kilo of sugar, right? Or you return back to him the same 1 kilo of sugar in the next day. So it is called obligation, right? But when it comes to the same thing goes to money. For example, you borrow from me 1,000 ringgit, and tomorrow I can give you. Tomorrow you can give me 1,000 ringgit. So it is actually dime, because these are the homogeneous properties, right? But in contrast, ain is something different, because ain means is something determinate, specific. A non-homogeneous property itself is a subject of the contract, as it is a specific and unique thing. For example, when a house or a car is sold, it is a specific house or car and not any house or a car. In previous example, you know, you go and you say to the supermarket, or you tell the buyer, that you tell the seller that I want a kilo of sugar. Not necessarily it has to be this sugar or that sugar or that sugar. He can give you any packet that has a kilo of sugar. Am I right? This is called dine. This is called obligation, because when you pay 2 ringgit 50 cent for 1 kilo of sugar, the seller can give you any packet of sugar. When you are paying 10 ringgit for 1 kilo of biscuit, the seller can give you any packet of he can give you any packet of biscuit. It doesn't matter. It's not a big issue, because you are paying for 1 kilo of biscuit, 1 kilo of sugar, 1 kilo of oil. It can be anything. This is what we call Dain, obligation. The other one is specific thing, which we call a ain, because when you are booking a house, it is not any house. When you are buying a stone, it is not any stone. I gave you 1,000 ringgit, so give me any stone. No, I pay you 1,000 ringgit so that you can give me that particular design stone, that particular shape stone, that particular color stone, right? Now you have so many other examples that you can think of. I don't have to tell you. You may have different things. Because now you say, no, 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 I pay for this. I paid for specific this. I paid for this specific design. You know, so most of the time, mashallah, we have girls, we have female students here. I think you know better, because sometimes you will be very much worried because you didn't get the thing that you exactly wanted. Because you say, no, I paid for this, I paid for this design, I paid for this color. These are the things comes. This is where we call it specific thing, which is actually ain. All right. According to Hanafi, all right. According to Hanafi, Salam contract involves generic properties such as rice or wheat. Istisna in contracts, they argue, involves a specific property. So now you know these two things. These are the two um, exceptional cases. I know most of the time you cannot buy something which is not available. Most of the time, if you pay something, it has to be available, then only you can pay something. But in two cases, you cannot pay and then you get it. You have to pay and then they will make it. Once it's ready, then they will give it to you, right? For example, if you want to order something, then you have to pay in advance, right? That's why we pay in advance to book something. And then you want to build something, your house or your apartment, you have to make a booking, you have to make something, you have to pay in advance so that your contractor will build it and give it to you. All right, is what istisna. So istisna is actually a building, the builder is building for you. Salam is actually payment in advance. So this is what actually according to Imam Abu Hanifa. And then the second consequences, according to this, what they call it, similar and dissimilar. The second one is riba. This is also very important for you to understand. When a riba comes, when riba never comes. Riba comes only in homogeneous properties. Remember, I bought from you 1 kilo of sugar. So I have to give you back 1 kilo of sugar. Instead, you are asking me, you pay me 1 kilo of sugar plus 100 gram of sugar. Uh, this is what we call riba. The additional 100 you ask is a riba. But in non-homogeneous, it's a different thing. In non-homogeneous, because you cannot give exactly the same, so riba will never, because now when you are dealing with non-homogeneous, you can say, okay, I'm willing to sell my house, this house, I'm willing to sell this house, but this is a unique house, so instead I want to take from you this money. So you may say 1 million or 2 million, up to you, that you can fix your price, right? Sorry, I have give me 1 minute. The classroom, yeah. All right. So now, as you understood, this is what homogeneous properties. I mean, riba may arise when parties deal with homogeneous. All right, and any additional amount charged on the borrower of money is considered usury, while it is permissible if an owner of non-homogeneous properties such as an used car may charge the borrower for the use of the properties. Remember here also the usages, all right, and the usages, right, the rentals, you know, when I rent my property, when I rent my stuff, I can only rent those non-homogeneous properties. I cannot rent something that the homogeneous property. For example, I have this a kilo of sugar, and then I said, okay, um, I give you 1 kilo of sugar, and tomorrow you pay me 1 kilo of sugar plus 200 grams sugar. And then I said, the reason I'm charging additional 200 gram of sugar because it's a rental. You know, someone can say this, right? Someone can say this, right? Because I'm giving you rental, because when you have a car, and then you give you a car, and then in return you take the car back plus 100 ringgit additional because you rented your car to somebody. It is possible, right? So the same way, if someone comes and says that no, I give you my money, for example, my money, I gave you 100 ringgit, but tomorrow when you pay me, you give me 100 ringgit and 10 ringgit plus extra, additional 10 ringgit because I gave you my money 100, all right, which is actually I want to rent my money. So this is what basically the conventional banks are saying. They are renting money, but according to Islam, we cannot rent the money. Why? Because it comes under homogeneous properties. Anything that comes under homogeneous, mislead property, because you know, when I borrow the money 1,000, tomorrow am I giving you back the same money? Am I giving you back the same 1,000 ringgit with the same serial number? No. When I borrow from you 1 kilo of sugar, am I giving you the same? Am I giving you the same sugar tomorrow? No, I will buy different sugar and give it to you, but it is the same level, same amount of sugar. So this is what we call homogeneous. In the next example, you will see in the next classification of perishable and non-perishable, you will learn more in this. All right. Okay, but when it comes to non-homogeneous, the equality is not necessarily there. So compensation, this is another consequences. When a homogeneous property is destroyed, a person is obliged to compensate it with with a property similar to it. All right. So you wasted my 1 kilo of sugar. Make sure that you pay me. You get me the same. All right. You wasted my printer. Of course, in the market, the same printer available, you go and buy for me. You wasted my phone. All right. In the market, there is that same phone. You know, you just go. But if a non-homogeneous property is destroyed, right? For example, if someone destroyed something called antique, hmm? Maybe that you know you love your mother's watch. You've been using it for so long. Your grandmother watch. You've been using it for so long. Suddenly, someone lost it because you don't because there is no price for it. So I mean, there is no similar unit available in the market, right? You let's say someone's lost your stone. Someone lost anything that you call it non-homogeneous, a property destroyed, then the price has to be paid. The price means that whatever you say the price, that is the price. You said, okay, you lost my watch, so you have to pay me. But if the same watch available, he will buy for you. But if the same watch is not available, right, then it become antique. Then it become non-homogeneous, right? If the same stone available, okay. If the same stone is not available, then that's why when it comes to house, for example, someone destroy the house, right? Burn the house, then the price must be paid. Number 4, based on surviving, usable and perishable. Okay, this usable, perishable also similar to what we discussed earlier, but there are very few differences. Let us see. But this is also one of the most important classification of property. Usable means what? A property
Sir.
that would, yes, Iqbal?
Sorry. About the non-homogeneous. Is it riba accepted? Like we charge the rental car.
Exactly. Because this is not called riba, right? You call it ijara. Understand? Because
Oh yeah, yeah.
when you are actually giving your car to somebody and you say that, okay, tomorrow you return back the car, of course, because I gave you the car, you return back the car. Together with the car, you have to pay me additional 100 ringgit. That additional 100 ringgit is actually for the usage of the car. This is where we discussed earlier, usifrakt. You know usifrakt, remember? Manfa'ah. Manfa'a, because you've been
Yeah.
enjoying riding my car, you've been using transporting from one place to another place. So for that manfa'a, for that usage, you are supposed to pay me. This is what we call ijara. So this ijara, it is not actually riba. Riba only comes in what? Perishable, sorry, only comes in homogeneous property. Now you will learn more in this perishable and usable also. This is very clear picture. It will give you, the previous one is very common. This one very specific. Only two, I mean, based on the surviving, there are two. One is usable. The other one is perishable. Usable means what? Your car, your clothes, your books, someone can use your stuff and then return back to you. Perishable is what? Someone will use it, but he cannot give you the same thing. For example, your sugar, your oil, someone may use it, may drink it, may eat it, but cannot give you the same. For example, someone use your chocolate, someone eat your chocolate, he cannot give you the same chocolate. I mean, he cannot give you, he has to buy another chocolate, all right? So this is what we call perishable. Istihlaki. Property is a property which does not survive once it consumed. Food, water, petrol, paper, and money. Remember, the money comes under what? The currency comes under perishable, because when I borrow from you 1,000 ringgit, I have to pay you after 1 week. Will I give you the same 1,000 ringgit with the same serial number, or different 1,000 ringgit with different serial number? I have to give you a different, right?
Different.
Exactly. That's why it is perishable. Perishable means istihlaki, something that we perish, we eat, we finish, and then we give something else. Perishable properties are most of the time homogeneous properties. All right. Remember last time we talked about homogeneous, right? Most of the perishable properties are most of the time homogeneous properties. While dealing with these properties, it is necessary to observe sustained conditions in order to avoid the possibility of riba. So this is where money comes, and we actually call riba is haram. Why? Because money is a perishable, and also money is a money is a perishable, not usable. Your car is usable, your phone is usable, your cloth is usable, your book is usable. You can actually charge rental for it, and the person who took it, and then he can give you back the book and then give you extra money. He can give you back the clothes and give you extra money. He can give you back your car, or he can give you back your land with extra money. But any perishable item someone borrow from you, he doesn't need to give you extra. If you charge extra, then it becomes riba. The consequences. Number one, perishable properties cannot be rented out. This is what I told you. These properties can only be used once. Therefore, Islamic law prohibits renting these properties. But it is allowed to lend or borrow these properties, and while lending these properties, any conditions for additional return is considered usuri. You can borrow from me a cup of sugar, you can borrow from me a cup of oil, right? But when you return back, better you give me the same. I cannot ask you, okay, tomorrow you have to return me back 2 cup of sugar, 2 cup of oil. Then it becomes usuri. Thus, a person may charge another for the use of his house, which is usable, while he cannot charge him for the use of his money, which is perishable. Remember this all the time. Money is perishable. That's why today conventional banks are saying riba is halal. Why? On the basis of this, because they do not put the money into perishable. They put the money into usable. They do not put money into homogeneous. they put money into non-homogeneous. That's the reason why riba become halal for conventional banking. Since we agree money is perishable, money is homogeneous, then according to Islamic banks, riba is haram. It is because when a house is rented, it is certain that a tenant would get benefit or usufruct from the house, as I told you. Money, on the other hand, has to become part of an enterprise and combined with efforts. While money is invested, there are possibilities of profit and loss, because not necessarily that because when money is invested, not necessary that you have to say that okay, you will return the same money exactly, because it's a profit and loss. Charging extra amount irrespective of the outcome of the enterprise is considered injustice. Therefore, Islamic law allows the profit and loss sharing, contract of musharaka mudaraba. It permits qard. Okay, qard means what? You can borrow money, you can return, but cannot be given as. You can hear me, right? Can you?
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, which
Okay.
mean in court, what you say, perishable, no, cannot accept it in
Yeah.
court.
Yes. Perishable cannot be accepted. Yeah. All right.
Sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. So the next one is actually what? Based on cash, code and goods, urud. All right. This is very, very simple. There's nothing much to talk about, because all those cash, we call cash and carry, right? All those commodities called urud. Nuqud refer to gold, silver currencies. And then urud means all those commodities like silk, cotton, cloth, right? All these things. There's nothing much to talk about it. But the next one is actually intellectual property. All right. Intellectual property is something also called property. Maybe there is no physical forms in intellectual property, but it is still considered as a property. Literary, artistic works, inventions, designs, registered trademark, trade secrets, and confidential information that could not be disclosed without permission. All this comes under what? Intangible or intellectual property. Intellectual work are the outcome of the tremendous research and effort. For example, all the publications, articles that you are doing, journals, conference papers, patents, copyrights, all these can become what? Intellectual property. For example, the story, you have the narration, you start writing book like Harry Potter, all right? All these can become intellectual property. So an intellectual work is such as the property of the one who made it, as he has the right to benefit from his labor. This right is protected by the law, and others cannot take and use a certain property without its own permission. Like what we call piracy today. Piracy, right? Piracy is a big issue today. People doing plagiarism, copy and paste. People actually stealing the idea and making some other idea, copying from one industry to another industry, copying, even the patents, making into cloning, even you can get so many things in cloning. So this is all actually unacceptable, because intellectual property also a kind of property. Protection of intellectual properties means that no one else should duplicate it without author's permission. We can't even duplicate, the book that we are doing today. Usually we go to the photocopy shop and then we duplicate. It is also not allowed according to this idea of intellectual property. If a person who has bought disc or book, he has the right to sell the same disc or book, but he has no right to copy the disc or book and sell it. All right. Okay, this is also something we need to understand. We bought it for one use, and then suddenly we are making multiple copies, and then we are selling it. It is actually not acceptable, because it is intellectual property. All right. This is the same what I'm saying. You bought one book for 50 ringgit, and then you started photocopying, and then you started selling for 10 ringgit each book, which is actually not the purpose of you buying. You bought it for 50 ringgit only for you to use it. not for others to sell it. All right. Protection of intellectual property gives the inventor a proper incentive to improve and develop it. It may also encourage others to contribute to different scientific fields. So you can also think about it. Someone may write on it. Someone may think about the modern forms of intellectual property. What are the properties today? People actually, they don't, people mostly, they actually, they deal with it. What are the things that there are certain companies actually dealing with it? They are duplicating somebody's ideas. This is all come under this topic. All right. Okay, that's all from me today, and this is your attendance.
Physics had, chemistry had, physics had, economics had, politics had, psychology had. So same structure. Thus description will not get more than that.
Sir, actually I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
You said for the homogeneous, it must be the same thing. For example, you pay money and you can get any type of sugar, right?